Good evening, guys. Tonight we slip into the shadowed sands of ancient Egypt, where the air hangs thick with the scent of dust and forgotten incense, and the Nile's whisper carries secrets older than the stars. You stand there in the blistering heat of the Valley of the Kings, your boots sinking into the parched earth as the sun dips low, painting the jagged cliffs in blood-red hues. The wind tugs at your linen shirt, carrying faint echoes of chants from millennia past, and suddenly, a chisel strikes stone with a crack that reverberates through your bones, like the gods themselves are clearing their throats. This is the moment when eternity cracks open, and you, wide-eyed intruder, forget that some doors should stay sealed. Oh, and here's your cheeky reality check. You probably won't survive this tale unscathed. Blame it on the pharaoh's grudge if you wake up checking your locks twice tonight. So before you dive into this story, take a second to hit that like and subscribe button, but only if this really ignites a fire in you for the legendary events I tell. And hey, drop a comment below with your location and local time. Are you cozy in Tokyo at midnight or nursing coffee in New York at dawn? Let's see where the curse finds us all. Now dim the lights and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge deeper into the Valley of the Kings, the relentless Egyptian sun baking your skin, even as November's chill begins to creep in from the desert night. It's 1922, and you're Howard Carter. Not the bumbling archaeologist from the movies, but the real deal. A wiry Englishman with a mustache that looks like it could sweep away cobwebs and a notebook perpetually smudged with ochre. Your patron, Lord Carnarvon, paces nearby, his aristocratic impatience as sharp as the pickaxes glinting in the workers' hands. You've been digging here for years, sifting through rubble like a kid hunting for buried treasure in a sandbox. But today feels different. The air hums with that electric buzz you get before a storm, or maybe just before you realize you've forgotten your sunscreen again. Ah, sunscreen. Remember how the ancient Egyptians slathered on crocodile dung for protection? Talk about a spa day gone wrong. You'd take your chemical SPF over that reptilian regret any day. Your team of Egyptian laborers, faces etched with the quiet wisdom of generations, murmur prayers to the old gods as they clear the last layer of debris from what looks like a flight of stairs descending into nothingness. The valley stretches around you, a crumpled labyrinth of tombs hacked into limestone, each one a pharaoh's desperate bid for immortality. You've mapped this place 100 times, dodging rock slides of the occasional scorpion that eyes you like you're interrupting its nap. But now, as the dust settles, you glimpse it. A plastered wall, sealed shut, its surface bearing the cartouche of a boy king you've chased in dreams, Tutankhamun. Your heart stutters, a silly little flip like when you spot your ex at a wedding, but with way more gold involved. Can you see anything? Carnarvon will ask later, his voice muffled through a tiny peephole you'll poke in the door, and you'll whisper back, ever the dramatic, yes, wonderful things. But right now, in this suspended breath, you feel the weight of it all. The thrill, the trespass, the nagging whisper that maybe, just maybe, you've poked the hornet's nest of the afterlife. The workers fall silent, their trowels hovering mid-air, as if the gods have hit pause on the universe. You lean in closer, the faint scent of myrrh wafting up from the cracks, sweet and cloying like a lover's perfume left too long in the heat. It's a mainstream historical fact, etched in textbooks and whispered in museums. On November 4th, 1922, after 5 grueling years of excavation funded by Carnarvon's dwindling fortune, your team uncovers the entrance to KV-62, Tutankhamun's tomb, remarkably intact after over 3,000 years, buried under workmen's huts and flood silt. No looting, no pilfered jewels, just a time capsule sealed tighter than your grandma's cookie jar. You can't help but chuckle inwardly. Imagine the pharaoh's ghost, sitting cross-legged in the dark, thinking, finally, some peace and quiet, only for you lot to show up with lanterns and loot bags. But oh, the subtle omens are already slinking in, like uninvited guests at a party. As you supervise the careful chiseling, because let's face it, you're not about to Hulk smash a national treasure. A stray cat darts across your path, its eyes glowing amber in the torchlight. Superstition? Sure, but in Egypt cats are sacred, guardians of Bastet, and this one's hiss feels personal, like it's saying, buddy, you just adopted a lifetime supply of bad luck. You brush it off with a gentle sarcasm to your crew. What? Think the kitty's got stock tips from Anubis? Keep digging, lads. Fame awaits, or at least a stiff drink. The first joke lands light, easing the tension as the plaster crumbles away, revealing seals stamped with the jackal-headed god of embalming. Your fingers tremble as you trace them, the wax cool and brittle under your touch, and for a split second, the valley seems to hold its breath with you. Historians still argue whether Tutankhamun's relatively modest tomb, tucked away in this royal necropolis, was ever meant to be hidden so thoroughly, or if it was just the boy's untimely death at 19 that rushed the whole affair, leaving artisans to slap on curses in haste. Some say the warnings scrawled above the door, "Death will come on swift wings to those who disturb the peace of the king," were standard boilerplate like the fine print on a rental agreement you never read. Others whisper it was deliberate, a pharaoh's petty post-mortem prank. You ponder that as the door gives way with a groan that echoes like a sigh from the depths, the sound vibrating through your chest, stirring the fine hairs on your arms. Dust motes dance in the beam of your lantern, and you step forward, Carnarvon at your elbow, his cologne clashing absurdly with the tomb's ancient musk. Inside, the antechamber unfolds like a dream you shouldn't wake from. You blink against the gloom, your eyes adjusting to the chaos of history piled high. Ebony statues standing sentinel, their painted eyes following your every move with that unnerving stillness. Chariots dismantled like forgotten toys, their wheels wrapped in gold leaf that catches the light and throws it back in defiant sparkles. The air is cooler here, laced with the dry, papery tang of resins and natron, salt used to mummify the dead. The same stuff that makes your popcorn pop, but here preserves eternity. You reach out, almost touching a floral collar of blue faience beads, its colors vivid as if woven yesterday, and pull back just in time. Careful, you mutter to yourself, voice a soft ASMR hush in the confined space. Don't go turning into an exhibit yourself. Second joke, delivered with a sleepy wink to the shadows. Because if you're going to tempt fate, might as well flirt with it. A quirky fringe tidbit bubbles up in your mind as you catalog the clutter. Among the everyday grave goods, tucked beside a scribe's pallet, lies a peculiar little amulet shaped like a scarab pushing the sun. Standard fare, you think, until you notice it's etched with a reversed hieroglyph, a backward ankh that scholars later dubbed the typo of doom. Was it a mason's oopsie, or a deliberate hex flipping life to death like a cosmic prank? You smirk, the third joke slipping out in a murmur. Tut's interior decorator must have been on his third coffee. Wait, is that the death symbol or just modern art? The crew chuckles softly, the sound muffled by the walls. But you feel it, a ripple of unease beneath the mirth. Carnarvon fans himself with a fan meant for the king himself, ivory and ostrich feathers whispering against the still air, and you exchange glances that say, "We've hit the jackpot, but at what cost?" As days blur into a frenzy of wonder, you orchestrate the unsealing of the burial chamber proper, that golden door beyond the antechamber calling like a siren's song. Telegrams fly to Cairo, buzzing with barely contained glee. Magnificent discovery, tomb intact. The world outside erupts. Newspapers splash headlines that scream of riches untold, and you imagine the headlines in your modern aside. Boy King drops mic on poverty, gold hoard goes viral before TikTok existed. But here, in the tomb's embrace, the frenzy builds quietly. Your lantern flickers, casting elongated shadows that twist like serpents on the walls, and you swear you hear a faint rustle, like linen shifting in the sarcophagus ahead. Is it the draft from your own breath, or something stirring awake? You pause, hand on the sealed portal, the subtle omens now a chorus. A worker's sudden fever dismissed as heat stroke. Carnarvon's canary. Yes, he brought a pet bird, falling eerily silent in its cage. You shake it off, that gentle sarcasm your shield. Birds gotta tweet sometime. Or not, apparently. But deep down, as the door of eternity creaks open wider, you wonder if you've ignited more than wonder. The gods, after all, have long memories, and you've just rung their doorbell. The golden door yields at last, its hinges protesting like an old man roused from a nap, and you cross the threshold into the burial chamber, where the air thickens to a velvet hush, heavy with the scent of cedar and eternal sleep. Your lantern's glow spills across the sarcophagus, a towering nest of shrines gilded and inlaid, each layer a puzzle box guarding the boy king's fragile form. You move like a thief in your own dream, footsteps muffled on the sand-strewn floor, heart pounding a rhythm that syncs with the distant drip of condensation from the ceiling. Plink, plink, like the gods tapping their fingers in impatience. Carnarvon hovers close, his breath warm on your neck, eyes wide as saucers behind his spectacles, and you can't resist a sleepy murmur, laced with that gentle sarcasm. "Easy there, my lord. Don't go proposing to the mummy just yet. She's got commitment issues from 1323 BC. The crew stifles laughs, the sound a soft ripple in the tension. Your first joke ease in the weight as you begin the delicate unraveling, layer by painted layer. Weeks stretch into a haze of cataloging and crating, the tomb transforming from sacred vault to your personal warehouse of wonders. You direct the Egyptian artisans, masters of their craft, their calloused hands wrapping artifacts in cotton wool with the reverence of priests tending altars, their chants low and rhythmic, blending with the scratch of your pen on paper. Outside, the valley buzzes with intruders, journalists sneaking peeks, diplomats angling for souvenirs, the frenzy of wonder swelling like the Nile in flood season. Telegrams pile up, your modern aside slipping in as you seal another dispatch. If this were today, we'd have drone cams and live streams, Tut Unboxing, Pharaoh Edition, sponsored by some energy drink that promises eternal life. Irony not included. But the subtle omens from that first breach, they're no longer whispers. They've sharpened into barbs, pricking at the edges of your days. Remember that canary of Carnarvon's, the one that went quiet? Well, just as you breach the inner shrine, a cobra, sleek and venomous, guardian of the pharaohs Uraeus, slithers into the camp and devours the poor bird whole. The men cross themselves, muttering of Wadjet's wrath, and you force a chuckle, second joke tumbling out in ASMR soft tones. Guess the tweet's been suspended, permanently. Who needs Twitter when you've got fangs? As the treasures flow out, thrones of ivory and ebony, that iconic death mask with its lapis eyes staring through you like it knows your browser history. You feel the shift, a chill seeping through the linen wrappings of your soul. It's March 1923 now, and you're back in Cairo, the Shepherd's Hotel, a swirl of ceiling fans and iced gin fizzes, the city's pulse a frantic counterpoint to the tomb's stillness. Carnarvon arrives, flushed from the train, mosquito bite on his cheek, an angry red welt you dismissed as a desert nuisance weeks ago. You clink, glasses in the lounge, the claret tart on your tongue, toasting to the boy who outlived his own dynasty. But his laugh rings hollow, edged with a cough that rattles like loose pebbles in a tin. The quirky fringe tidbit that locals whisper over hookahs. That bite wasn't just any bug. It was festering with some ancient bacterium, unearthed from the tomb's dust, a microbial time bomb primed by 3,000 years of resentment. You wave it off, of course. Science over spooks. But as fever claims him, his skin hot as sun-baked clay under your palm, you can't shake the image of that cobra's grin. April 5th dawns sticky and oppressive, the Nile's humidity clinging to your collar like regret, and word comes swift as a sandstorm. Carnarvon's gone, slipped away in his suite at 1:55 a.m., the exact moment the lights across all of Cairo flicker and die. A mainstream historical fact, dry as the desert wind. The Earl's death from septicemia, triggered by that infected bite, sparks the curse legend worldwide, with newspapers howling of divine retribution just months after the tomb's unsealing. You stare at the telegram, crumpled in your fist, the paper's edge biting your skin, and the world tilts. Back in England, his son wires frantic questions. Did he say anything about the tomb? And you reply with measured calm. But inside, you're replaying that first peek through the peephole, the wonderful things now tasting of ash. The frenzy outside? It devours the story whole. Tabloids splashing sketches of vengeful mummies rising from bandages, and you imagine the headlines in a sleepy aside. Pharaoh's revenge. One lord down. Who's next on the hit list? Your third joke, murmured to the empty hotel balcony as stars prick the velvet sky, falls flat even to your ears. Carnarvon always said he'd die in luxury. Well, 5-star pneumonia it is then. You trail back to the dig, the valley's cliffs looming like judgmental sentinels, their shadows stretching long in the afternoon glare. The workers tread lighter now, eyes darting to corners where scarabs skitter like fleeing souls, and you catch snippets of their talk, tales of Aku, restless spirits unbound by your meddling. Aubrey Herbert, Carnarvon's chum and a diplomat with a poet's soul, visits next, his blindness no bar to the tomb's allure. He traces the walls with fingertips, inhaling the myrrh deep air, and you guide him through the antechamber. Voice a gentle lilt against the echo. But by November, he's wasting away. Tumors blooming in his throat like cursed lotuses, dead at 40 before the year's out. Coincidence? The pile grows. George J. Gould, American Railroad heir, tours the site in a feverish haze, catches a whiff of tomb mold pneumonia, and drops weeks later, his lungs clogged as the valley's wadis after rain. Then Hugh Evelyn White, your sometime rival, the papyrologist who scribbled "cursed" on his suicide note in 1924, dangling from a tree like a grim ornament. Rope burns raw on his neck. Words inked in his own blood. You press on, though, because that's the archaeologist's creed. Dust off and dig deeper, even as the coincidences mount like unpaid bills. Sir Bruce Ingham, the quiet financier who bankrolled a side expedition, gifts you a paperweight from the digs, a scarab, innocuous as a desk toy. And within a year, his wife perishes in a car wreck. He follows from a septic blister on his eye, the infection mirroring Carnarvon's bite down to the fevered delirium. The air in the workers' tents grows thick with incense, offerings to appease the Ka, and you join in one night. The smoke curling lazy tendrils around your face, its bitterness coating your throat like unspoken apologies. Historians still argue whether these mounting tragedies stem from a genuine occult force, perhaps toxic spores in the tomb's sealed air, or even radium traces in the artifacts, or if it's mere statistical sleight of hand, the spotlight of fame turning every sniffle into a harbinger. You ponder that over lukewarm tea in your tent, the canvas flapping softly in the breeze, lantern light dancing like fireflies on your maps. Spooky spores or bad karma, you muse aloud to the empty air, a callback to that backward Ankh from the antechamber, its flipped life symbol now seeming less typo and more prophecy. The years unspool in a tapestry of loss and legacy, you shuttling crates to the Cairo Museum amid whispers that follow like stray dogs. Arthur Mace, your colleague with the steady hand for sketches, fades in 1928, blood poisoning from a mere cut, irony's dull blade twisting again. Richard Bethel, Carnarvon's secretary and your right-hand man, succumbs to heart failure in his sleep that same year, found stiff as the wrappings you once unwound. Even the fringes creep in. A radiologist who x-rays the mummy report's ghostly faces in the negatives dies mysteriously months later. A financier's son chokes on a chicken bone after mocking the curse at dinner. You weather it all, mustache grayer, eyes shadowed by nights poring over papyri, the sensory toll etching lines on your face, the perpetual grit in your teeth from wind-whipped sand, the phantom chill of tomb drafts on sweat-slick skin. Modern asides flicker in your journal. If we'd had respirators back then, or at least a curse app to rate the hexes, 5 stars for drama, 0 for originality. But the pondering deepens, that eternal question coiling tighter. Are the gods exacting revenge, their whispers swelling to roars through these eerie threads? Or is it just the universe's way of saying, you stirred the pot, now eat the soup? By 1930, the toll stands at a dozen souls, give or take, each thread a knot in the noose of legend, and you stand alone in the valley at dusk, the sun bleeding orange across the cliffs, the air cooling to a lover's sigh. The tomb's mouth gapes empty now, treasures scattered to glass cases, but the echo lingers, the rustle of linen, the flicker of shadows. You trail, your fingers along the sealed-up entrance, the stone warm as flesh, and feel it. The timeless revenge, not in thunderclaps, but in the quiet unraveling of lives. a pharaoh's grudge as patient as the sands. The gods forgot nothing. They simply waited, their wrath a slow pour of honey over your dreams. And as stars wheel overhead, ancient as the curse itself, you turn away, boots crunching softly, wondering if the next breath you draw will be your last unclaimed. We wander the moonlit fringes of the Nile, where the river's black waters lap at papyrus reeds like a serpent tasting the air, and the desert wind carries the faint, metallic tang of blood from distant embalming tents, shadows stretching long as the jackal's muzzle under a canopy of unblinking stars. You pause there on the riverbank, the cool mud sucking at your sandals, heart quickening as a silhouette detaches from the reeds, a sleek form with ears pricked high, eyes gleaming amber in the torchlight, sniffing the boundary between life and the great unknown. This is Anubis, the watcher who doesn't blink, his presence a chill that prickles your skin like the first brush of linen bandages. And here's your cheeky reality check. You probably won't survive this journey intact. Blame the jackal god if you start eyeing your shadow suspiciously come morning. You prowl the misty banks of the Nile at pre-dawn, the air thick with the croak of frogs and the sweet rot of lotus blooms decaying in the shallows, your bare feet leaving prints that the receding flood will soon erase. It's the Old Kingdom, around 2600 BC, and you're not some pharaoh's vizier in fine linen, but a humble embalmer's apprentice. Linen kilt hitched against the damp, hands already stained with the acrid resins that will perfume the dead. The village of embalmers, those shadowy folk the living call the dirty men, for they traffic in the taboo, huddles on the west bank, that side of the river where the sun sets, where Ra's light surrenders to the duat's hungry maw. You trudge toward the Per Nefer, the house of beauty, its low walls whitewashed against the creeping sands, the scent of cedar oil and myrrh wafting out like an invitation you dare not refuse. Torches sputter in clay holders, casting flickering dances on murals of jackal-headed figures overseeing the rites, their forms half man, half beast, poised as if listening to the pulse of the world beyond. Inside, the air cools to a hush, heavy with the tang of natron, that crystalline salt pulled from the Wadi Natron, drying flesh like a desert kiss. And you kneel before the body on the slab, a noble woman this time, her skin waxy under the oil lamp's glow. Your master, an old priest with eyes like polished obsidian, intones the spells, his voice a low rumble that vibrates through the stone floor. But it's you who feels the first stir. A shadow uncoils from the corner, padding silent as mist, resolving into Anubis himself, or so the fringe whispers go. Not the god in flesh, mind you, but his essence, invoked by the incantations, a guardian born from the primordial chaos when the world was still a watery void. You freeze, pulse thumping in your ears, as the jackal head looms, ears erect, muzzle black as Nile silt, that iconic crook and flail crossed over his chest like a warning not to fidget. Steady now, your master murmurs, but you can't help the sleepy sarcasm bubbling up in a whisper. Great, because nothing says relaxing bedtime ritual like a dogman crashing the party. Does he fetch souls, or just chase them in circles? The first joke lands soft, easing the knot in your gut as you pass the linen strips, the fabric whispering against your palms like secrets shared in the dark. A mainstream historical fact, carved into the walls of countless tombs and echoed in the pyramid texts. Anubis emerges as the preeminent embalmer god by the 5th dynasty, overseeing the mummification process that preserved over 70 days, from evisceration to the final wrapping, ensuring the Ka's safe passage to the afterlife. You assist now in the Yeb festival, the opening of the mouth, where you touch the mummy's lips with an adze of meteoric iron, sky-forged, they say, to cut through the veil, and chant words that make your tongue tingle. I have come to protect you, Anubis, who is upon his mountain. The god's presence presses closer, his form a blend of canine grace and human solemnity, fur imagined as sleek ebony in your mind's eye, though the priests wear masks of the same to channel him. The quirky fringe tidbit that apprentices swap over weak beer in the pre-dawn chill. That Anubis wasn't always jackal-headed. Early sketches show him as a full canine, roaming the edges of the world, feasting on the unworthy, until some canny priest fused him with a man's body, perhaps after spotting a feral dog gnawing bones by a fresh grave, birthing the hybrid watcher who now sniffs at the mummy's bandages as if testing for lies hidden in the folds. You rise, wiping sweat from your brow, the tent's close air a sauna of spices and salt, and follow the procession out, the body borne on a sledge slick with milk offerings, the jackal god's effigy leading the way. The Nile gleams silver under the rising moon, papyrus swaying like spectral dancers, and you feel Anubis's gaze on your back, that vigilant escort weaving through the myths that birthed him. Born of Osiris's union with Nephthys, Set's wife, in a tryst of betrayal and starlit shadows, he was abandoned at birth, suckled by a she-bastet in the marshes, his cry echoing like wind through reeds. You envision it in flashes, tiny paws in the mud, milk warm on his tongue, the first howls calling the duat's gates to creak open. By the time you're shouldering the sledge's ropes, muscles burning under the stars, the myths solidify. He's the one who mummified Osiris himself, piecing his dismembered father from Set's savagery, wrapping the green god in linen threaded with spells, birthing the art of eternity from familial gore. Family reunions in ancient Egypt, you mutter to the apprentice beside you, voice a gentle ASMR hush against the night's chorus, always with the drama, dismemberment, resurrection, and zero small talk over dates. Second joke, delivered with a wry half-smile as the group crests the dune, the tomb's mouth yawning black ahead, a limestone gullet ready to swallow. Historians still argue whether Anubis's rise, from local jackal spirit to national deity, stemmed from a deliberate syncretism during the Middle Kingdom, blending regional cults to unify the realm under one watchful eye, or if it was organic, jackals' real-life scavenging around graves inspiring priests to deify the scavenger as protector. You ponder that as you lower the sledge into the antechamber, the air turning musty with the scent of sealed earth and faded incense, torches guttering in the draft that whispers up from the duat. The workers, stout men with coal-rimmed eyes, chant hymns to the god, their voices layering like the mummy's wrappings. Anubis, who is before the divine booth, lord of the sacred land. You help position the sarcophagus, its cedar lid carved with the jackal's profile, alert and unyielding, and for a moment, the shadows pool at your feet, forming paws that pad just beyond the light. The craft of embalming pulses in your veins now, the careful incisions with obsidian blades, the removal of organs to canopic jars guarded by his kin. the heart left in place for the weighing to come. Modern aside flickers as you seal the tomb with mud bricks stamped in royal cartouches. If we'd had embalming vlogs back then, it'd be day 47, stuffing grandpa with onions, Anubis reacts, likes pouring in from the afterlife. Deeper into the night, you linger by the tomb's threshold, the desert wind tugging at your kilt like impatient fingers, carrying grains of sand that sting your cheeks. Anubis's legacy as escort solidifies here, in the liminal space where the living bid farewell. He's the psychopomp, the guide who herds souls across the river of fire, his crook nudging the lost like sheep toward judgment's hall. You recall the tales from the priest's scrolls, unrolled by lamplight, the Duat's 12 gates, each guarded by serpents and knives, Anubis slipping you through with a nod, his flail a promise of order amid chaos. The fringe whispers persist, that in some delta cults, he shapeshifts to test the dying, appearing as a stray jackal at the bedside, eyes holding your secrets if you dare meet them. You shiver, pulling your cloak tighter, the wool scratchy against your skin, and quip to the empty sands, third joke a sleepy lilt. Nothing like a god who multitasks. Embalmer by day, Uber for souls by night, 5 stars, but tip in feathers. The echo fades, swallowed by the dunes, but the god's presence lingers, a shadow at your heel, embodying the craft that bridges worlds. As dawn bleeds pink across the horizon, gilding the Nile in molten hues, you turn from the tomb, boots crunching on the path back to the village, the weight of the night's rites settling like dust in your lungs. Anubis watches still, from the reed-fringed edges, his form dissolving into mist as the sun claims the sky. Guardian of thresholds, weaver of the dead's first steps. You've glimpsed his rise, felt the chill of his myths coil around you, but the Duat calls deeper, its gates parting just a crack, inviting you to prowl further into the embrace. The crack widens as you slip from the waking world, your body left heavy on a reed mat in the embalmer's hut, the scent of smoldering Kai-Fi incense clinging to your hair like a lover's farewell, while your ba, that fluttering bird self, lifts free, soaring through veils of twilight haze toward the Duat's yawning threshold. You feel the pull now, the inexorable tug like the Nile's current dragging you under, cool waters closing over your head as Anubis materializes at the river's edge, his jackal form sleek and unhurried, crook in one paw, flail in the other, guiding your spectral flight across the fiery caverns where serpents coil like living flames. The air down here hums with the low throb of unseen hearts, sulphurous steam rising in curls that taste of ash on your tongue, and you land soft on obsidian shores. Pause. Wait. Your own hands now paw-like in the dream logic, sinking into black sand that whispers judgments yet unspoken. Anubis pads beside you, his breath a warm puff against your ear, eyes reflecting the torch-lit gates ahead, and you can't suppress the gentle sarcasm in your ethereal murmur. Nice escort service. Does it come with mileage reimbursement? Or just eternal, awkward silences? The first joke echoes faintly off the cavern walls, a light ripple in the gathering dark as you press on, the god's presence a steady shadow that comforts and unnerves in equal measure. Deeper into the Duat you venture, the 12 gates unfolding like a nightmare advent calendar, each guarded by colossal sentinels, Amit's kin, crocodile-jawed horrors with hyena laughs that curdle the mist, demanding passwords drawn from the Book of the Dead, spells you half recite in a voice gone husky from disuse. Anubis leans in at the first portal, his muzzle brushing the air near your shoulder. The faint musk of desert earth and embalming resins wafting from him like a callback to that natron-dusted slab back in the Pernefer. He utters the key for you, I am pure, I am pure. His tone a sleepy ASMR growl that vibrates through your feathers, unlocking the way with a groan of stone on stone. The path twists through realms of fire and shadow, the heat licking at your edges like a forge's kiss, distant wails of the unrighteous blending with the sizzle of subterranean rivers, and you glimpse shades milling in twilight limbo, their forms translucent as smoke, pleading for passage. Your guide doesn't falter, flail swishing rhythmic as a metronome, nudging stragglers toward their fates, and you wonder at his vigilance. The one who weighed Osiris now weighs every step you take, his crook a gentle prod against your back. Forward, little Ba. The scales await, and they're never late for dinner. At last, the grand hall of Ma'at materializes, a vast cavern vaulted in star-flecked gloom, pillars of lapis and gold rising like frozen lightning, the air electric with the scent of ozone and blooming lotuses that defy the underworld's chill. You hover at the threshold, heart, or whatever passes for it here, thudding against your ribs as Anubis ushers you in, his paw firm on your withers, the touch cool and reassuring as polished jet. Before you looms the scale, a massive balance of burnished bronze, one pan empty save for a single ostrich feather. Ma'at's emblem, quivering light as truth itself, while the other awaits your secrets, heavy with the deeds of a life spent slathering resins and whispering lies to the dying. Thoth stands scribe at the ready, ibis head cocked, stylus poised over a papyrus scroll that unfurls endlessly, his beak clicking in anticipation. Osiris presides from a throne of verdant reeds, skin green as new papyrus, eyes serene yet piercing, and you feel exposed, stripped to your essence under their gaze. Anubis steps to the scales, his form swelling to fill the space, jackal ears silhouetted against the flickering braziers, and with ritual grace, he lifts your heart from your chest. Ah, there it is, that fist-sized knot of pulsing red, slick and warm in his paws, placing it deliberate on the right pan. The feather dips not an inch, but your heart thuds down, sending a tremor through the frame that rattles the chains like bones in a gale. You watch, breath held in your bathroat, as Anubis adjusts the weights with meticulous care, his claws clicking soft against the metal, the sound a hypnotic tick in the hushed hall. Sensory details flood you, the faint creak of the balance, the dry rustle of the feather's barbs, the god's furred breath stirring the air into eddies that carry hints of myrrh from your embalming days. Remember that backward Ankh charm, tucked in a linen fold, its flipped life now mocking you from memory. A mainstream historical fact, intoned in temple hymns and etched on sarcophagi. The weighing of the heart, central to the New Kingdom's funerary rites from around 1550 BC, determined the Ka's eternity, with Anubis as the impartial overseer, ensuring only the Ma'at aligned, those balanced in truth and justice, gained the reed fields of Aru. You lean forward, spectral wings twitching, as the pans seesaw, the feather's lightness a taunt, your heart's secrets spilling out in whispers. That time you skimped on natron for a pauper's rights to pocket the fee. The white lie to a widow about her husband's peaceful crossing. The quiet greed in hoarding a gold scarab meant for the gods. But oh, the unraveling mercy. Anubis pauses, muzzle tilting as if scenting the nuances, his amber eyes locking on yours with a knowing glint that forgives the small stains. The quirky fringe tidbit that Delta storytellers murmur over Nile-side fires? That the god keeps a hidden ledger in his crook, etched with invisible ink from the tears of repentant shades, allowing one feather's worth of grace for every honest regret. Your heart lightens a fraction, the pan rising with a sigh, as if he's tallied your apprentice's laughter during long nights. The extra myrrh you slipped into a child's, wrapping. You exhale, the tension coiling loose in your chest, and quip in a voice like drifting smoke. Phew, dodged the devourer. Next time I'm packing lighter on the baggage. Who knew karma had a weight limit? Second joke, murmured with a sleepy wink to Thoth, who merely scribbles on, his quill a scratch like nails on eternity's blackboard. Historians still argue whether Anubis's role in the judgment evolved as a counterbalance to Osiris's mercy, perhaps a priestly invention to humanize the divine, blending terror with tenderness. Or if it mirrors older canine cults where jackals devoured the impure but spared the pack's young, his flail a shepherd's tool turned arbiter. You feel that debate in the air, thick as the incense haze, as the scales tip toward equilibrium, the feather floating serene, your heart bobbing like a cork in calm waters. A myth lurks in the corner, that chimeric beast, hippo jaws, lion haunches, croc tail, her eyes greedy coals. But Anubis raises a paw, voice a resonant rumble. This one walks in truth's shadow, let the fields bloom for them. Osiris nods, the hall's braziers flaring brighter, casting golden warmth that seeps into your ba like honeyed wine. And the god escorts you past the scales, through a portal of glowing reeds where the air turns sweet with overripe figs and the hum of eternal bees. The echoes of retribution fade behind you, but not without a shiver. Those whose hearts plummeted, you glimpse in peripheral horror, snatched by Amit's maw, their shrieks cut short as she's fed, the cycle's grim necessity. Anubis's mercy unravels further in Aru's meadows, where you graze among shades in linen light, the grass silken underfoot, the sun, Ra's boat, forever sailing, bathing you in endless dawn. He lingers at the edge, a sentinel silhouette against the horizon, flail at rest, watching over the balanced souls with that same unblinking vigil. Modern aside drifts in your reverie. If Afterlife HR had reviews, Anubis would get tough but fair, harsh on the liars. But hey, free lotus snacks for the passers. Third joke, shared with a passing shade who chuckles like wind through palms as you settle into the reed beds, the duat's embrace now a cradle rather than a claw. Yet retribution's whispers persist in the distance, a low growl from the unweighed caverns, reminding you of the god's dual edge, the embalmer who binds, the watcher who unmasks. Anubis fades into the tree line, his form blending with the jackal packs that prowl Aru's borders, ever the guardian, his verdict a thread woven through your eternity. You stretch out, bay wings folding soft, the feather's truth light on your tongue, and let the field's lullaby claim you. The jackal's shadow a comforting veil over dreams that know no end. We awaken to the first blush of dawn over the Nile's emerald ribbon, where the river's surface shimmers like liquid gold under a sky streaked with rose and saffron, and the air hums with the distant lowing of cattle stirring from reed beds, their breath mingling with the earthy perfume of silt-rich mud baking in the tentative sun. You lie there on a woven reed mat in a mud brick hut, the cool clay walls pressing close like a mother's embrace, your chest rising slow and deep as twin flickers ignite within, one a steady glow anchoring your bones, the other a restless flutter eager to wing free. This is the dance of the Ka and Ba, those invisible companions shaping your every whim, from the lazy stretch of limbs to the wild spark of a lover's glance across a crowded market. And here's your cheeky reality check. You probably won't survive this introspection unscathed. Blame your inner duo if you start second-guessing every impulse before breakfast tomorrow. You stir in ancient Egypt's dawn, the first rays slanting through the slit window of your Theban home like fingers probing secrets, warming the linen sheet draped over your form and coaxing a yawn that tastes of last night's garlic-laced lentils, hearty and lingering on your tongue. It's the new kingdom, say 1350 BC, and you're no pharaoh lounging on ivory-inlaid beds, but a scribe in the temple of Amun, your reed pen and ink palette waiting by the low table, the air already thickening with the Nile's humid promise of another scorcher. As you swing your legs over the mat's edge, feet meeting the gritty floor, fine sand sifted in overnight, a perpetual itch between toes. You sense them. The Ka, that vital force, a warm ember nestled in your belly, pulsing with the rhythm of your breath, urging you to rise, to eat, to claim the day as yours. It's the spark of sheer aliveness, the double that mirrors your every move, invisible yet insistent, like the shadow you cast when you stand, stretching arms overhead until joints pop with a satisfying crack. Beside it flutters the Ba, your mobile essence, lighter than a sigh, already itching to roam, perhaps as a daydream of scribbling odes to a dark-eyed dancer, or the sudden whim to detour by the fruit stalls for a ripe fig, its juice bursting sweet against your palm. You pad to the basin, splashing Nile water over your face, the cool droplets tracing rivulets down your neck that send shivers chasing the Ka's inner heat, a sensory tango that starts your blood singing. The Ba whispers mischief. Why not linger here, tracing ripples in the clay bowl, imagining them as the river's serpentine path to the sea? But the Ka grounds you, practical as baked bread, propelling you to the hearth where embers glow soft, coaxing flat cakes from the griddle, their yeasty scent curling up like an offering, steam kissing your cheeks. You break one open, steam escaping in a puff that fogs your vision briefly, and chew slow, the Ka savoring the sustenance that fuels its fire while the bay drifts in fancy to the temple courts ahead, where priests in leopard skins intone hymns that make the air vibrate like harp strings plucked in unison. Modern aside slips in as you rinse crumbs from your fingers. If we had soul-tracking apps today, it'd be K, 80% battery, needs carbs. Ba, roaming data on, plotting detours, upgrade to premium for eternal roaming. You smirk at the empty room, the first joke a gentle ripple in the quiet morning, as you sling your satchel over one shoulder, the leather creaking soft, and step out into the alley's bustle. The street awakens around you, a symphony of donkey brays and women's laughter sharp as shattered pottery, the sun climbing to gild the whitewashed walls in honeyed light, while dust motes dance in beams that warm your kilt-clad thighs. Your Ka strides steady, feet falling in the even tread of routine, toward the Ramesseum's shadow, where papyri await your hieratic script. But the Ba tugs sideways, a flutter in your chest drawing your gaze to a potter at his wheel, hands slick with clay as it spins hypnotic, shaping vessels from mud as you shape words from whim. This interplay shapes your rituals, those daily devotions that bind the twins in harmony. At the temple gate, you join the throng, the air heavy with incense, frankincense biting your nostrils like winter's edge, and offer a libation from your bowl, barley beer foaming golden, poured with a murmur, for Amun's Ka, that it may enliven mine. The Ka drinks deep of the act, vitality surging like floodwaters renewing the fields, while the Ba soars in the chant's swell, voices layering into a drone that buzzes your eardrums, carrying you briefly above the courtyard's crush. A mainstream historical fact, inscribed on tomb walls from the Old Kingdom onward. The Ka was believed to be the animating life force present from birth, often depicted as a human figure with upraised arms, symbolizing protection and vitality, which required ritual sustenance even in life through offerings to household lararia. You feel it now, as you settle at your low desk in the scriptorium, the Ka's ember stoking focus amid the scratch of styluses on papyrus, ink's bitter almond whiff mingling with sweat-damp reeds, the bay lending flair to your flourishes, turning dry inventories of grain into verses that wink with wit. The quirky fringe tidbit that scribes whisper over midday bread, passed hand to hand sticky with honey, that the Ba could slip free in dreams, possessing a neighbor's cat for nocturnal jaunts, leading to tales of felines reciting poetry at dawn or knocking over sacred jars in fits of remembered revelry. Your own Ba, perhaps, once borrowed a ibis to peck at forbidden dates, leaving you groggy with fruity regrets. You chuckle low, quill pause in mid-stroke, the sound a sleepy ASMR hush amid the room's murmurs. Ba's got 9 lives worth of side gigs. Next, it'll unionize with the scarabs for better travel perks. Second joke, delivered with a wink to your colleague across the table. His nod appreciative as sunlight shifts, gilding the inks to jewel tones. Deeper into the day, the twins' whims propel you through mortal coils. The Ka demands the midday meal, a shared platter of fish grilled crisp, its smoky char flaking onto your tongue, while the Bay sparks a flirtation with the bread seller, her bangles jingling like laughter. Eyes dark pools that pull you in with a shared jest about the heat. Hotter than Set's temper, eh? Your response quick, Ba-fueled, drawing her grin like honey from a comb. Historians still argue whether the Ba's bird form evolved from falcon cults in pre-dynastic times, symbolizing royal mobility, or arose organically from observations of human-headed birds in delta marshes, its mobility a folk metaphor for the soul's restless wanderings. You ponder that as afternoon wanes, the sun dipping to paint the Nile in molten copper. Your Ka weary from tallied columns, but eager for the evening's release. Perhaps a tavern's lute-strummed haze, beer foaming in jars that clink like conspirators. Sensory details envelop. The river's lap at your sandals as you detour for a rinse, water cool and silty, fish nipping at toes like playful imps. The Ba reveling in the splash, Ka content in the refreshment that steels you for homeward trudge. As twilight bruises the sky to indigo, you return to your hut. The alley's lamps flicker into life like hesitant stars, their oil smoke trailing acrid fingers. The Ka settles with a sigh, drawing strength from the simple rite of lighting your own lamp. Flames buttery glow pushing shadows to corners, while the Ba lingers in the doorway, gazing east where the moon rises fat and silver, a pull toward unseen horizons. You felt their ignite today, twin sparks intertwining in the weave of hours. The Ka's anchor in bread and duty, the Ba's flight in fancy and flirt, shaping rituals from libations to lovers' quips. Modern aside murmurs as you unroll a scroll for bedtime tales. Soul duo therapy would be gold. Ka griping about Ba's wanderlust, Ba rolling eyes at K's homebody vibes. Sign me up for the group chat. The third joke fades into the night's chorus of crickets, a gentle lilt as you blow out the lamp, sparks dancing brief in the dark, leaving you to drift on their harmonious hum. The pre-dawn hush of the embalmer's hut envelops you one final time. The reed mat beneath your back, a familiar cradle of woven fibers that scratch faintly against your linen shift. The air laced with the lingering bite of myrrh from last night's rites, sharp and resinous, like pine sap mixed with secrets. Your chest rises and falls in shallow rhythm, each breath a thread fraying at the edges, and then it stills, the world tilting as your body slumps heavy, a vessel emptied of its twin sparks. You feel the severance like a sigh released into the ether, the Ka, that vital force, a shimmering heat uncoiling from your core, reluctant to stray far, hovering above the husk like a flame drawn to its own wick. But the Ba stirs freer, your mobile essence, unfurling as a luminous bird with human head, feathers iridescent in the lamplight, wings whispering soft against the hut's thatched roof as it lifts toward the star-pricked sky. The Ka lingers earthbound, tethered to the offerings that will soon pile at your tomb's door. Bread and beer, the stuff of life you once savored under the Nile's glare. And you sense its quiet ache, a gentle pull like gravity's afterthought, while the Ba quests onward, drawn to the Duat's shadowed maw where the river of the dead churns black and beckoning. You drift as Ba now, the Ba's keen eyes piercing the veil, the wind through your pinions carrying the cool, mineral tang of the western cliffs, those sunset-swallowed heights where tombs chew into limestone like termites in bone. Below, your kin gather in hurried clusters, faces etched with coal and grief, their chants rising in a low, throaty cadence that vibrates through your feathers, spells to coax the Ka from its stupor, to bind it to the mummy's form with amulets of lapis and gold. The Ka hovers still, a spectral double of your living self, arms outstretched as if to embrace the dawn that won't come. Feeding on the incense curls from clay braziers, the smoke's vanilla-sweet haze a lifeline to the mortal coil. You circle lower, bat wings slicing the air with a hush like pages turning in a forgotten scroll, and brush against it, that twin spark flickering in recognition, a warmth that sparks memories of shared whims, the impulsive dive into the Nile on a sweltering afternoon, water shocking your skin like laughter's gasp, or the stolen kiss under papyrus fronds, hearts sinking in Kaaba harmony. Ah, the post-mortem family reunion, you murmur to the ether, voice a sleepy ASMR thread laced with sarcasm, K playing house with the corpse while Ba's out joyriding. Talk about splitting the chores unevenly. The first joke drifts down like a feather, lightening the Ba's ascent as you veer toward the Duat's threshold, the horizon bruising purple with the promise of underworld gloam. Deeper you quest, the Ba's form slicing through layers of dusk that thicken to twilight syrup, the air turning heavy with the sulphurous reek of subterranean forges and the faint, briny whisper of the Duat's river, where ferrymen with ibis beaks pole shades across currents that bubble like boiling pitch, Gates loom, 12 iron-jawed sentinels, each demanding a password etched in your Ba's memory from lifetime recitations, and you flutter past, wings beating a frantic tattoo against the chill that nips at your plumage. The Ka's absence tugs distant now, a faint echo like a half-remembered melody bound to the earthly remnants. Your sarcophagus in the valley's embrace, stocked with shabtis, those tiny servant figures, wooden and wide-eyed, ready to toil for your Ka in perpetuity. Sensory echoes flood you, the phantom crunch of beer-soaked bread between teeth, the Ka's sustenance drawn from phantom feasts laid at your tomb's slab, offerings that decay slow under the desert's dry kiss. A mainstream historical fact, woven into the coffin texts of the Middle Kingdom around 2000 BC. The Ka, as life's animating spark, required daily nourishment post-death, with priests performing the opening of the mouth to link it eternally to food and frescoes, ensuring the force didn't wither like untended flame. You imagine the rituals unfolding topside, your double basking in the glow of oil lamps, while down here, the Ba navigates shadows alive with skittering scarabs and the low moans of unmoored souls, their forms frayed as moth-eaten linen. The Duat unfolds in caverns vast as pharaohs' dreams, walls veined with glowing quartz that pulses like arrested heartbeats. The air a cocktail of damp earth and smoldering herbs that coats your Ba throat like regret. You dodge flames that lick from cracks, trials of fire meant to scorch the unworthy, and whisper spells to cool your feathers, the words tasting of honeyed milk on your tongue. The quirky fringe tidbit that embalmers trade in hushed tones over natron pouches, that the Ba sometimes plays tricks in the descent, shape-shifting to test the Ka's loyalty, appearing as a seductive lotus bloomer to lure it from the tomb, only to dissolve into mist, leaving the vital force howling in the void. You chuckle inwardly, wings folding for a glide through a tunnel where bioluminescent fungi bloom like false stars, their spores dusting your form in ethereal glitter. Ba's got commitment issues, you quip to a passing shade. A translucent farmer with a crook over his shoulder, voice dropping to that gentle, sarcastic lilt. Off gallivanting while Kay's stuck on babysitting duty. Divorce in the afterlife, Egyptian style. Second joke, echoing soft off the dripping stalactites as you emerge into Ma'at's hall, the scales gleaming ahead like a promise or a peril. Historians still argue whether the Ka and Ba's duality reflects a philosophical evolution from earlier, singular soul concepts, perhaps a scribal flourish in the pyramid texts to mirror the heart's double chambers, or if it stems from folk beliefs in jackal-scavenged graves, where one essence clings to bone while the other flees skyward. You ponder that as you alight on the hall's marble threshold, bay claws clicking faint against the stone, the air electric with the scent of ozone and justice's unyielding feather. Anubis looms at the balance, jackal muzzle solemn, lifting your heart, slippery and insistent in his paws, while Thoth scribes the verdict, his ibis quill scratching like whispers of fate. The feather quivers opposite, light as exhaled breath, and you watch the pans teeter, your Ba hovering breathless, the Ka's earthly anchor a distant hum in your awareness. Balance tips true, your life's whims, those twin-sparked impulses of love and larceny, evened by truths unspoken, and Osiris nods from his verdant throne, the hall's braziers flaring to bathe you in golden haze. Modern aside flickers as the gates to Aru part, reeds swaying in an eternal breeze that smells of fresh-cut green. If souls had therapy, it'd be K versus Ba, who gets the house, with group sessions in the fields of rushes. Rebirth calls now, the Bo spiraling upward through shafts of starlight that pierce the Duat's dome, wings straining against the pull that reunites you with the Ka in a rush of warmth, like dawn breaking over the Nile's bend. You remerge as Ak, the transfigured whole, drifting to the celestial bark, where Ra sails nightly, your form a constellation etched in the void, pinwheel of the north, perhaps, or a lesser spark winking among the imperishables. The Ka's earthly ties loosen gradual, offerings fading as the tomb seals tight, but echoes linger. A priest's libation splashing stone, the vital force sipping sustenance in dreams. Sensory bliss envelops you, the silken brush of cosmic winds. The Ba's freedom now boundless, questing through nebulae that taste of spun sugar and infinity. You wheel among the stars, twin sparks fused in starry rebirth, the Duat's shadows a memory soft as shed feathers. Eternal drift, huh? You muse to the void, third joke a sleepy exhale into the dark. K grounded like a homebody, but the wanderlust bird. Together we're basically the original road trip duo, no GPS required. The laughter fades into the hum of the spheres, your Ak a quiet glow, wandering between body and starlight, whole in the weave of forever. Tread the whispering sands of Abydos, where the desert's golden dunes roll like frozen waves under a merciless sun, and the air shimmers with heat haze that distorts the horizon into a mirage of palm-fringed eternity. The faint echo of priestly chants carried on winds laced with the dry, resinous bite of sacred incense from half-buried shrines. You pause there amid the sun-baked expanse, your linen kilt fluttering against sweat-slicked thighs, the grit of quartz-fine sand working its way between your toes as a jackal's distant howl slices the stillness, summoning shadows that pool at the base of ancient pylons like spilled ink from the god's own quill. This is the cradle of resurrection, where earth meets the underworld in a hush of myth and masonry, and you, unwitting pilgrim, feel the pull of Osiris's green gaze from the depths. Oh, and here's your cheeky reality check. You probably won't survive this wander unscathed. Blame the old god if you start eyeing your backyard dirt pile like it's a portal to the afterlife come dawn. Now settle deeper into your sheets. Let the words sift over you like cooling dune silk, and glide into the awakening. You wander Abydos's sun-baked dunes, the relentless orb overhead baking your shoulders to a tender pink, even through the dubious shield of your wide-brimmed reed hat. The air thick with the mineral tang of sun-scorched limestone, and the occasional whiff of wild acacia blossoms, stubborn bursts of yellow defying the desolation. It's pre-dynastic twilight, say 3000 BC, and you're not some robed high priest with a retinue of bearers, but a simple herder from the Nile's fertile flank. Your crook heavy in calloused hands as you urge a flock of bleating goats toward the western escarpment, that jagged wall where the living world frays into the realm of the dead. The dunes part grudgingly under your sandals, revealing glimpses of low tumuli, mounded graves heaped with ochre-painted pottery and ivory combs, offerings to spirits you sense more than see, their presence a prickle along your spine like static before a storm. Abydos stirs here in mythic seeds, sown in the blood-soaked soil where Osiris fell to his brother's blade, his body hacked and scattered, only to root anew in this sacred bend of the Nile. The river's lazy curve, a vein pulsing life into the god's dismembered legend. You kneel by one such mound, fingers sifting sand that yields a shard of blue-glazed faience, cool and smooth as a river pebble, etched with a crude eye. Wadjet's watchful gaze, perhaps, or just a herder's hopeful ward against the jackals that slink at dusk, their eyes glinting like misplaced stars. The wind shifts, carrying the low murmur of early pilgrims, Delta folk trekking with donkeys laden in barley sacks, their chants a rhythmic undercurrent to the goats' complaints. And you follow, drawn to the site's heart where a modest cenotaph rises, a brick-lined pit veiled in linen, its entrance flanked by stelae carved with the first whispers of Osiris, green-skinned lord of the fertile black earth, his crook and flail crossed in eternal vigilance. You linger at the threshold, the air inside cooler, laced with the musty damp of underground springs that bubble faint from the Osirian's embryonic form, a flooded chamber, half-natural cavern, half-hewn sanctuary, where priests will one day sow barley in sacred mud to mimic the god's sprouting resurrection. Green shoots piercing the soil like hope's first breath. Sensory details envelop you, the slick chill of mist-kissed stone under your palms, the faint plink of water droplets echoing like hesitant applause, the Ka's vital spark in your chest fluttering in sync with the site's pulse. A mainstream historical fact, etched in the annals of the First Dynasty. Abydos served as Egypt's primordial royal necropolis from around 3100 BC, with kings like Narmer interring their forebears here in vast underground galleries, the site's sanctity rooted in its proximity to the mythical burial of Osiris, drawing elites to claim a sliver of divine rebirth. You press deeper, the tunnel narrowing to brush your elbows, torchlight from a trailing devotee, flickering shadows that dance like resurrected limbs and can't help the sleepy sarcasm bubbling in a murmur. Nothing like a family plot with VIP resurrection perks. Osiris started the trend, and now everyone's crashing the after-party. The first joke drifts back to the group, eliciting a chuckle from a veiled woman clutching an Ankh amulet, her nod appreciative as you emerge into a cramped shrine, walls daubed with ochre scenes of the god's triumph. Isis's wings enfolding the reassembled corpse, Horus's falcon gaze avenging the dismemberment. Millennia blur in the haze of processions you trail, your herder's crook traded for a laborer's trowel as dynasties rise like Nile floods, each layering the site with mud-brick chapels and seracs proclaiming pharaonic piety. By the Middle Kingdom, around 2000 BC, you're a quarryman hauling limestone from the cliffs, muscles aching under the sun's glare, the sledges groaning over rollers slick with water poured from amphorae that slosh cool against your calves. The Osiris cult blooms wild here, temples swelling into a labyrinth of hypostyle halls where priests in panther skins enact the mysteries, annual rites reenacting the murder, the search, the mystical sowing of the god's spine in fertile plots, barley sprouting as his phallus, symbol of renewal that makes the earth quicken anew. You help erect a stela for Senusret III, its basalt cool and unyielding under chisels that sing against stone, carving pleas for the god's favor. May Osiris grant life eternal as the flood renews the fields. The quirky fringe tidbit that quarry tales spin around campfires, beer jars foaming sticky on lips. That the site's underground springs aren't mere aquifers but the god's own tears, wept during his entombment. Their waters infused with a subtle verdancy that turns offerings to vivid green. Drink it, they say, and dream of verdant fields where the dead walk upright, though one sip too many leaves you retching silt for days. You smirk, wiping sweat from your brow with a forearm dusted white as natron, the second joke slipping out in ASMR soft tones to your mate on the ropes. Osiris's spa treatment, cry it out, grow some grain. Who'd have thought therapy came with a harvest bonus? The laughter rumbles low, easing the hall as the block slots into place. A thunderous thud that vibrates through your souls, binding earth to the eternity the god embodies. Historians still argue whether Abydos's mythic seeds were deliberately planted by early kings to legitimize rule, crafting Osiris as a deified ancestor to mirror pharaonic resurrection, or if the site's natural springs and fertile wadi organically birthed the cult, priests retrofitting legends to a landscape that already whispered of rebirth. You ponder that amid the dust-choked air of the ever-expanding complex, the sun dipping to gild the pylons in amber, your shadow stretching long toward the west where the duat waits patient. Modern aside flickers as you stack tools at day's end, the clank of bronze echoing. If ancient PR firms existed, they'd pitch Abydos as resurrection resort, where your afterlife gets a glow-up. 5 stars from the gods, 0 for the sand in your shorts. The third joke lands with a grin from the foreman, his squint crinkling as torches flare to life, their oily smoke trailing acrid fingers into the twilight. Centuries cascade like the Nile's inundation, washing you forward to the 19th dynasty, 1290 BC, where you're a mason under Pharaoh Seti I, the air humming with the frenzy of grand construction, chisels ringing in staccato symphony from dawn's blush to starlit hush. Seti's vision seizes the site, a sprawling temple of sandstone and granite, L-shaped to embrace the sacred Osirian, its facade a forest of papyrus bundle columns soaring skyward, hypo-style halls veiling the shrines in dappled shadow. You scale scaffolding slick with mortar, the lime's caustic bite stinging your nostrils, hauling monolithic reliefs that depict the king offering incense to Osiris. The god's verdant form emerging from a mound of earth, flail raised in benediction. The rites bind tighter now. Daily invocations where priests anoint faux phalluses of barley dough, symbolizing the god's regenerative power. The air thick with the yeasty ferment and chanted spells that make your skin prickle, as if the stones themselves lean in to listen. You carve a cartouche in the king's list, a roster of forebears etched in luminous hues of lapis and malachite, reds vivid as arterial blood, your ads biting deep, chips flying like startled birds. The K within you thrumming with the labor's vitality. The Osirian calls at twilight, that enigmatic cenotaph behind the temple proper, its subterranean halls flooded seasonal to mimic the underworld's primordial waters, walls hewn with scenes of creation's chaos, nuns swirling depths birthing the sun disk, Osiris adrift yet unyielding. You wade the shallows during a rite, water lapping cool at your knees, scented with lotus petals strewn like fallen stars. The priest's voices, a resonant drone, invoking resurrection. Awake, O Lord of eternity, from thy sleep in the earth. Sensory immersion peaks, the echoey splash of your steps, the faint glow of bioluminescent algae in the depths, or so the fringe claims, fed by the god's latent magic. The cause spark igniting with the collective fervor. Seti's grand edifice crowns it all, unfinished at his death but pushed to glory by Ramesses II. His son's cartouches overwriting gaps like hasty edits in a divine manuscript. The complex, a nexus where resurrection rites, mysteries of dismemberment and reknitting, bind the pharaoh's soul to Osiris's cycle, earth trembling with the promise of green eternity. As the last blocks settle under a canopy of stars that wheel indifferent overhead, you descend the dune's far slope, the temple's silhouette a hulking guardian against the night, its whispers already fading into stone, the sands shifting to veil what awakens. The sands shift beneath your descending steps, grains whispering conspiracies as they cascade into the wadi's crease, the temple's silhouette resolving sharper in the starlight. A monolithic sentinel etched against the velvet void, its pylons thrusting upward like fingers clawing at the indifferent heavens. The faint glow of braziers within pulsing like the last heartbeats of a fevered dream. You circle the perimeter under night's cool shroud, the air turning crisp with the Nile's distant exhalation, carrying hints of lotus and mud. Your bare feet silent on the packed earth as you slip toward a breach in the outer wall, a laborer's gap, veiled by acacia scrub that scratches your calves like insistent fingers. Imperial glory hums from within, Ramesses II's era cresting like the flood's peak, his hypostyle halls thronged by day with supplicants bearing ivory tusks and lapis scarabs. But now, in the hush after moonrise, you eavesdrop on the priests' nocturnal invocations, their voices a silken thread weaving through the shadowed shrines, calling Osiris from his earthen slumber with words that taste of honeyed resin on your tongue. You press against the cool sandstone, rough grains embedding in your palms like embedded memories, the murmurs seeping out in waves, low chants from the inner sanctum, where the god's bark shrine lies veiled in linen embroidered with golden ankhs, the air inside thick with the cloying sweetness of Kaiphai incense, myrrh and juniper twisted in slow-burning coils that send tendrils snaking through cracks, coiling around your nostrils like spectral serpents. The head priest, his scalp shaved to moon-pale gleam under a leopard skin cowl, leads the rite, his timbre a resonant purr that vibrates the stone at your ear. Awake, O Osiris, Lord of the silent land. Let thy green limbs stir in the mound of eternity. You imagine the scene in flickering torch glow, the circle of acolytes kneeling on rush mats, their linen kilts pooling like spilled milk, hands anointing a cedar effigy of the god with oils that gleam slick and verdant, evoking the fertile black silt that births the crops each inundation. The ba within you flutters, drawn to the rhythm, while your ka anchors you here, vital and alert amid the night's chill, the sensory veil imparting to reveal the eternal vigil. These invocations, whispered thrice nightly, binding the temple's pulse to Osiris's resurrection, ensuring the pharaoh's ka sails unhindered to the starry bark. Deeper into the shadows you creep, skirting a fallen column. Ramesses' boastful addition, toppled perhaps by a quake or time's sly nudge, its fluted shaft cool under your fingertips, carved with scenes of the king's smiting Nubian foes, their profiles frozen in eternal defeat. The chants swell, layered now with flute's reedy wail and sistra's jangling shimmer, the sound wrapping you like a shroud, and you peer through a grate into the Osirion's antechamber, where subterranean waters lap at granite steps, their surface rippling silver under lantern light, reflecting the priest's forms as distorted doubles, half man, half wave, invoking the god's watery rebirth. A young acolyte scatters barley seeds into the flood, murmuring spells for the phallus rite, the grains sinking slow like whispered promises, destined to sprout in mimicry of Osiris's regenerative surge. Barley therapy for the undead, you mutter to the stone, voice a sleepy ASMR hush laced with gentle sarcasm. Because nothing says rise and shine like a crop circle in your coffin. Osiris must love his morning smoothies. The first joke echoes faint in your throat, swallowed by the rite's swell as an elder priest lifts a crook of electrum, its gleam catching your eye like a misplaced star, tracing sigils in the air that seem to tug at the veil between worlds. A mainstream historical fact, intoned in temple papyri from the Ramesside period. The nocturnal invocations at Abydos formed the core of the Osirian mysteries, performed daily by rotating priesthoods to synchronize the temple's rituals with the Duat cycles, sustaining the gods' eternal awakening and ensuring cosmic harmony for the realm. You feel the imperial glory in every syllable, Ramesses' cartouches dominating the walls, bold hieroglyphs inlaid with turquoise and carnelian, proclaiming his divine sonship to the green god. Yet cracks spider the plaster, harbingers of the crumble to come, as foreign sands encroach, the Nile's floods growing erratic like a heartbeat skipping. The quirky fringe tidbit that guards swap over date wine in the outer courts? That the Osirian's waters hold a drop of the god's own ichor, mingled during the first sowing, granting visions to those who submerge fully. Priests emerging with eyes wild, babbling of verdant fields where the dead harvest under double moons, though most chalk it up to the hallucinogenic algae blooming in the depths. You smirk into the dark, the second joke slipping out as a priest dips a vessel, water sloshing soft. 1 sip for enlightenment, 2 for the loony bin. Osiris's vintage must pair well with regret. No wonder the acolytes look so reflective. The ripple of mirth dies quick, the chants pulling you deeper into their thrall, the temple's vigil a living breath against the encroaching night. As seasons wheel into centuries, you linger in the eavesdropper's guise, the site's grandeur fracturing under time's quiet siege. The new kingdom's blaze dimming to Ptolemaic flicker, then Roman afterglow, where Greek merchants haggle in the forecourts by day, their coins clinking foreign against the old god's altars, but the nocturnal whispers persist, adapted now with hybrid hymns blending Isis's Greek epithets into Osiris's calls. You're a Coptic monk by the 4th century A.D., tonsured head bowed under a woolen hood, the air sharp with the tang of olive oil lamps replacing Kaifi's smoke, your sandals whispering over flagstones worn smooth by uncounted feet. Imperial, glory crumbles literal now. Ramesses' colossi tilt in seismic shudders, sand avalanching into hypostyle halls where columns stand as skeletal sentinels, their lotus capitals choked with drifts that sigh under your tread. The priests, fewer, their leopard skins traded for rough-spun cloaks, gather in the shadowed shrines, voices hushed to evade the edicts from distant Constantinople, invoking Osiris in code. The Green One sleeps, yet his seed endures. Their breaths fogging the chill marble as they anoint a weathered statue, its verdant paint flaking like shed skin, oils pooling in cracks that map the god's veins. Historians still argue whether the temple's eternal vigil succumbed first to Christian iconoclasm, zealous monks whitewashing reliefs with plaster prayers, or to the gradual desiccation of the Nile's floods, starving the resurrection rites of their watery essence and symbolic potency. You kneel in the Osirian's shallows, waters now stagnant and reed-choked, the surface scummed with fallen leaves that crunch under your fingers like brittle papyrus. The invocations a defiant murmur against the empire's Christian tide. Waves of edicts hammering pagan sites into submission. Yet here the whispers hold, a final bulwark where the god's Ka flickers faint. Modern aside drifts as you trace a faded cartouche, the stone's chill seeping through your palms. If temples had Yelp reviews, it'd be Abydos. 5 stars for ambiance, 1 for parking. Sand gets everywhere, and the gods ghosted centuries ago. The third joke fades into the drip of condensation from vaulted ceilings, a lonely plink in the emptying halls, as the last acolytes scatter offerings of bread and figs, their forms swallowed by shadows that lengthen with the waning moon. The siege deepens through Byzantine eddies and Arab conquests. You, a wandering dervish by the 7th century, turbaned and dust-robed, the Nile's banks now fringed with minarets that pierce the dawn like rival spears, the temple's pylons half-buried, their faces pitted by wind's patient chisel, vines snaking through joints like veins reclaiming the stone. Nocturnal rites dwindle to solitary vigils. A lone guardian, perhaps yourself, huddled in the bark shrine, the air musty with bat guano and the faint, defiant rot of wilted barley, whispering fragmented spells into the void. Stir, O Eternal One, from time's heavy shroud. The imperial glory lies in rubble now, Ramesses' boasts eroded to illegible smears, earthquakes toppling the hypostyle's forest into chaotic piles where scorpions skitter like forgotten hieroglyphs. The site's vigil a ghost's echo, sustained by hermits who etch crosses over Osiris's eyes, yet pause to murmur old names under starlight. Sensory remnants cling, the gritty slide of sand under your knees as you prostrate before the effigy, its cedar warped and splintered, the god's crook dangling loose like a broken promise, the Ka's spark dimming in your chest, mirroring the temple's fade, while echoes of Sistra jangle faint in memory's ear. By the Fatimid era, 10th century, you're a scholar fleeing Caliphal courts, quill and inkhorn slung in a satchel that bumps your hip. The complex a quarry for lime burners, their fires crackling orange against the night. Acrid smoke stinging your eyes as you evade patrols to eavesdrop on the silence itself. No chance now. Just the wind's hollow moan through gutted shrines. The Osirian's waters dried to cracked mud that flakes underfoot like desiccated skin. The eternal vigil succumbs piecemeal. Earthquakes in 1000 AD shearing pylons like sheaves. Sandstorms burying forecourts in dunes that shift like amnesiac waves. The last whispers silenced by edicts against idols of the Jahiliyyah, leaving only jackals to howl Osiris's name in the moon's indifferent gaze. You trace the site's bones by torchlight, the flame's buttery flicker illuminating reliefs where green gods once strode. Now faceless voids, the crumble complete as masons haul away columns for Cairo's mosques, the quiet siege victorious, time's patient thief absconding with the resurrection's roar. And so, as the wheel turns to modern husks, 19th century explorers picking at the ruins like crows on carrion, their trowels scraping echoes of what was. You fade from the eavesdropper's post, the temple's silhouette dissolving into dune-veiled obscurity, its whispers long since hushed to the desert's eternal sigh. Now, gentle listener, let the sands settle soft around these tales of awakening and fade, the temple's stones cradling secrets in their quiet folds, no longer besieged but simply resting under skies that stretch wide and forgiving. Stars winking like old friends who know the weight of forgotten chants. Breathe deep. Feel the hush wrap you like linen warmed by a distant sun, each grain of story sifting slow, carrying you toward slumber's gentle shore where Osiris dreams on, untroubled, his green limbs stirring only in the softest winds of memory. The jackal's howl softens to a lullaby, the Nile's murmur a cradle song, and here, in this eternal now, all vigils ease into peace. Yours most of all, safe in the weave of what was, drifting easy into the starlit arms of night, where time whispers not of siege, but of serene surrender. Sleep well, wanderer. The gods watch kindly, and dawn waits patient.